Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm recovering from that worship set. Man, it got a hold of me this morning. So forgive me as I try to just regather my thoughts. And then Matt stands up here and he starts talking all mushy, and I'm like, come on, man, I've had so much caffeine this morning. Raw, I'm ready to bang my head against the pulpit here and like smash things and jump around, but so when I start thinking about, the opportunities that we have as a church, and I start thinking about, what God is doing, there's really no more relevant church that we need to look to than Philadelphia. And what I want to do this morning is kind of walk through some of those things that made them the faithful church. Philadelphia is known as the faithful church. It mirrors the church in Smyrna that we saw, the second church. So there's a mirror there. What makes them faithful? What do we need to do in order to be called faithful church? And so there's some things that we're going to pull out this morning. But I just wanted to make sure that, first off, I don't offend anybody, because I do want this to be a good interaction between us. But, if you can't see this in the back, this is the Los Angeles Dodgers, two-time world champion. I'm just saying, next year. That's what I think in football. I'm a Dolphins fan. Next year, oh, wait a minute, we're going to have a high draft pick again next year. So, no, but I'm coming around to the Ravens. I'm thinking, if you think the Ravens will have me on board, I think I'm going to start selling my fandom a little bit, so, because the Dolphins are just horrible. But, so if you guys don't know me, if you're new to the church, apparently my name is Johnny Cash. So about half of you got that. Other half will be looking up who Johnny Cash is after service. I will tell you that I was with my wife last night. We went out on date night, and you know where we went? Josh will appreciate this. We went out on date night to Costco. You guys laughed. Does anybody else go shopping on date nights? Okay, look, we're not the only ones. Like, we love it. I don't know what it is. There's just something unifying about going and giving all your money to some other people and just coming out with stuff, but it's our stuff. And I think that's the connection there, is we just like coming out with our stuff. We ended up going to Costco because, Matt keeps talking about how comfortable these shirts are. It's so funny that Josh mentioned Costco this morning, because I was thinking about it and I was like, I need to get me a new shirt for preaching. I need to get me one of those Costco shirts to see what it's all about. Apparently it's all the rage, those Costco shirts. So we went and had dinner at the fine dining that is the Costco little buffet there. Hey, listen, man, don't knock it. $4.99. We had dinner and we were done. Then we went shopping. It was like a very, very spiritual experience for us. And so we're going through the shirt aisles, and I'm like, man, look at this. And I'm like, they're all wool. They're all like flannel. And I'm like, man, I will die if I wear wool or flannel up here. Listen, I'm hot-blooded by nature, and I would be passed out in about 20 minutes if I wore wool up here. So I was like, I can't get a shirt. So that's why I had to bring out the merch today for Bethlehem. So that's my Johnny Cash. Why I'm dressed like Johnny Cash this morning, all in black. So anyways, I want to say that it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to serve everybody. We're not leaving the church. This is not what that's about. So I just want to say that this church, the approach that we take towards relationship with Jesus Christ has revolutionized my relationship with Jesus. And how we move forward as a church is something I'm very much looking forward to. It's not about rules and regulations. It's not about righteousness. It's about relationship. And so as we go through the Church of Philadelphia this morning, what I want to do is encourage you all to kind of look and see. Let's do some introspection, some self-examination about where we're at in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so, let me see. Oh, I got him. Here we go. Now, it's getting bad, y'all. Listen. I've got the Bible that you can read from the back pew, all right? And I still have to whip out my glasses this morning, so I think the eye doctor's coming next. So let's see. We're going to be in chapter 3, verse 7 through 13. So this is a letter to Philadelphia. It is the sixth church in our series. And we're going to see that they are called a faithful church. Verse number 7 says, "Write to the angel of the church in Philadelphia, thus says the Holy One, the true one, the one who has the key of David, who opens and no one will close, who closes and no one opens. I know your works. Look, I have placed before you an open door that no one can close because you have but little power, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Note this, I will make those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not, but are lying. I will make them come and bow down at your feet, and they will know that I have loved you. Because you have kept my command to endure, I will also keep you from the hour of testing that is going to come on the whole world to test those who live on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one takes your crown." Verse 12 says, "The one who conquers, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never go out. Again, I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and my new name." Verse 13 says, "Let anyone who has ears to hear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches." Let's take a step back a little bit and just figure out what Philadelphia is. We need to have a little bit of context as we go through and we understand what these verses are going to mean to us. I apologize. That's the last time I'm going to do that. All right. So the church at Philadelphia is known kind of as a trade city. So it was situated between two mountains, and it was known as the gateway to the east. And so as you go through these mountain passes, you ended up having to go through Philadelphia in order to get through these trade routes. And so it was established back in like 187 BC. So it was around for a while, and we saw that it kind of lies on in a volcanic area. And so it was known for two things: very fertile ground, which produced extraordinary vineyards. So they were very much known for their wine, their grapes, their vineyards, and they were also known for earthquakes. Now, one commentary that I read said they didn't care about the earthquakes because they had such great wine and they were probably always drunk. So I don't know if that's true. I think that's Mike's concordance or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, but as they're going, the earthquakes is very much important to what is going to be outlined here in the text. And so as we see in 17 AD or so, the entire city was destroyed. It was destroyed by an earthquake, and for years and years they had tremors that would just keep the people from reestablishing the city. And so eventually what happened is the Roman government came in and gave them financial aid, and they gave them tax breaks basically in order to rebuild. And so the city of Philadelphia was very much in debt to the Roman government, and so they were very much tied to the Roman ways, and they were very steeped in Greek mythology. And so I was trying to remember the name of the Greek god Dionysus. So we see that when you look at them from a religious standpoint, is they tended to go towards the Roman Empire, and they followed Greek mythology and Dionysus, who is the god of wine. So, and if you study Dionysus a little bit, it's pretty wild because it's a god of excess, a god of debauchery, really. And so when we look at who they were, there was also a small enclave of Jewish people. So I would say it's going to be very relevant to what is going to go on here in these verses. When we look at the Jews, there was an enclave of them, but there was a small following of Jesus Christ. And so what is happening in the church of Philadelphia is that separation, that church that's coming out of those Jewish believers and those Gentiles, but they are very much separated. They're being chastised by the Jews of the time, the leaders of the synagogue, and we'll get to that. But from that, we see that there are some things that Jesus is calling them, that they are small, they are strong, they are very much socially weak, and they're they're socially weak, and God calls them a strong, faithful church. And so we're going to discover this a little bit as we walk through the verses. And so now that we have a little bit of context, what I want to do is dive into the scripture. I want to dissect it a little bit and then pull out some relevance for us. And so if you have your Bibles with you, go back to verse 7, and we'll go ahead and dive in there. It says, "Write to the angel of the church in Philadelphia, thus says the Holy One, the true one, the one who has the key of David, who opens and no one will close, and who closes and no one will open." So we see immediately that this is how Jesus is being defined as the Holy One. We see over 40 times in the Septuagint, in the Greek, that this phrase, the Holy One, is being referenced. This is an identity of who Jesus is. And the people of this church would absolutely know that when they say Holy One, this is exactly who they're talking about. It is Jesus. And there's an element of not only is he holy, but he's true. And so that is going back to Jesus being authentic, Jesus being a source of what is right, a source of what is true. And it's meant to oppose the Greek mythology at the time. And so if we say that the church of Philadelphia is fighting against Dionysus, that Greek god who was a demigod, we see that Jesus is gonna just automatically oppose that. Jesus is the true one. It's not Dionysus. It's not something that they have to go to the world and rely on getting their strength. It's not something that they have to go to these Greek mythologies and to find their strength. It's automatically establishing right up front who Jesus is, but there's a key phrase right after that. It says, the one who has the keys of David. So now we're going to establish that not only is he holy, and that's just who God is, he is holy. Not only is he true because he is truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So there is an element of holiness and an element of truth. But now we're establishing that Jesus has the keys of David. And what this means for us is that the keys of David was originally brought up back in Isaiah. So we look at, it was given to Eliakim, who was, the keys of David just basically meant that they had royal authority. So Eliakim was a servant in the house of the king at the time. And so the keys of David, that authority was passed to Eliakim. So Jesus is now saying, now, not only am I holy, not only am I true, but I am the true authority. I have the keys of David. I open and no one closes. I close and no one's open. All authority is now final. This is based off of what? The death, burial, and resurrection that he went through. There is no more there is no more obscurity about what causes that authority. When Jesus died, when Jesus was buried and he rose again, he conquered death and Hades. And we saw that earlier in Revelation. But he assumed that position of king, that royal authority, the keys of David, says he has that royal authority. This is King Jesus. He's not stepping out as one who represents authority. He is the authority. And so from that perspective, we need to understand exactly who Jesus is. And they would have known in that day that when he said the keys of David, Eliakim represented the king. Jesus is the king. It is King Jesus. And so when we look at this, what causes the church of Philadelphia to be called that faithful church is they have a recognition of exactly who Jesus is. Do we do that same thing in our life? Do we say that Jesus has a spot in our life where we pledge our allegiance to him, King Jesus? And we do that. We're going through that study on Wednesday night. I love it. We need to have a mentality that Jesus not only is holy, like he has so many attributes that are good that we need to pursue after. Not only is he the truth, the way, the life, but he has a position of authority in our lives. We need to understand that he is king in our lives and that we are loyal subjects of his. When we think about when we understand who Jesus is, we can begin to understand who we are in him. It all starts with that identification of who Jesus is. So move on to verse 8. It says, I know your works. Look, I have placed before you an open door that no one can close. Because you have but little power, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. So this church was known by its works. Church, whenever I read that, it says, I know your works. Look. It gave me pause whenever I read that. I was like, ooh, let me look. What if Jesus came to me and said, I know your works? What would that cause you to do? I tell you what it caused me to do. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I messed up. I fail you on a recurring basis. But I will say this. When Jesus looks at this church, he says, I know your works. And he says, you have little power, but you have kept my word and you have not denied my name. So, but they have no power. And they're described as a very small church, very weak socially. So when we look at this, it almost looks like Jesus prefers faithfulness over strength. He prefers perseverance over perfection. We can see that he prefers that obedience. You have kept my word. You have not denied my name. So if there are things in our lives that I could say that we need to be doing is, one, we need to be in our Bibles. They knew the word. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. And if we are not students of the Bible, if we are not students of the word of God, then how is it that we're supposed to keep it if we don't know it? How is it that we're supposed to just stand up for Jesus' name and we don't understand who Jesus is? This book is full of attributes of God. I like to think of it, it's either prescriptive or descriptive. It's either describing something that I'm to aspire to in the attributes of Jesus, or it's something that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be keeping his word, but I'm supposed to not deny his name. But if I don't understand what it is that's in here, then I can't do that. The faithfulness starts with that knowledge. Then it starts right after that with accepting that knowledge as truth and then putting that truth into action. And that's how I define faith. That's how I define being a faithful church. By the way, that's how we defined it in Sunday school that we have every morning or every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Shameless plug. So right now we're going through evangelism. Steve Fisher and Stacy are going through how to basically share the gospel and how to do that. Like, I see that as I have not denied your name. The sharing of the gospel is a very vital element in that. Not only do I just say, you know what, I belong to Jesus. King Jesus has authority over my life, but I am not going to deny his name. Is there a point at which I'm scared to do something or I'm scared to say something? And we've had this conversation in the men's group. When is it the appropriate time to say something about your faith? When is it an appropriate time to say, you know what? I am a follower of Jesus. When is it an appropriate time? Anytime the Spirit leads you to do it is the appropriate time. And we just need to keep in mind that we keep his word. We are not ashamed of his name. That is what makes for a faithful church. When we look at this verse, there's one thing that really kind of stood out to me. It says, because you have little power. I think it's that key. I'm sorry. Songs keep popping into my head all week. Just little kid song, little as much when God is in it. It just popped into my head. So I can't deal with distractions like the way Pastor can. His brain's wired like that. I don't. I have to stop and reset. So I'm hitting the reboot button. So we see that in 2 Corinthians 12:9. It's not going to be in there. I apologize. But he said to me, and this is Jesus talking to Paul, and it's about the thorn in the flesh. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Therefore, I will most gladly boast all the more about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may reside in me. If we are ever to really understand our capability, is we need to understand it's not of us. When Jesus died on the cross and was buried and rose up again, he created everything that we would ever need in order to proclaim his name. He created every strength that would overcome every weakness that I have. It's in my weakness that God is magnified. It's in my weakness that God can come through and show exactly who he is. I'm not capable of loving people the way that Jesus is, but through my God, through Jesus Christ coming into my life, I'm able to look at you like Jesus looked at you, and I'm able to care the way that Jesus cared about you. Those are the things that God really wants from us. And those are the things that our weakness is something that God works through. And I had this thought that weakness is not a limitation, it's a platform. Don't let your weaknesses break down what God has set you up to carry. It's through your weakness that God is going to perform something extraordinary through his power. All right. You guys want an intermission? I thought this is a new thing I would try out. We just do some popcorn and stuff like, no, okay, all right. Matt's like, don't. All right. Verse number 9 says, note this, I will make those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews, but I will make those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not, but are lying. I will make them come and bow down at your feet, and they will know I have loved you. We see here, this was the same verbiage that was used in Smyrna. With that church, we see the synagogue of Satan. That's referring to those Jewish leaders of the day who were absolutely opposed to anybody following Christ, because it was cutting in on what they believed was the righteous way, the spiritual way. So really and truly, they were in spiritual opposition to Jesus Christ. They were actively opposing, and I love he doesn't mix any words. The synagogue of Satan. So where's Josh? Is that one of the churches you pass on the way here, the synagogue of Satan? Okay, all right, I just want to see. So good choice not going there, all right? When we look at what this means is there's going to be opposition. Anytime that we make a stand as a church or as a believer, there's going to be something that opposes that. And it's not an opposition to you. Don't take it personal. It's an opposition to who Jesus is and the conflict that who he is and what he did for us brings to a person individually as they search their faith, as they search who they are. Moving on to verse 10, because you have kept my command to endure, I will also keep you from the hour of testing that is going to come on the whole world to test those who live on the earth. So there is an element here that we see in verse 10, because you have kept my command to endure. Isn't it amazing that God doesn't call us to achieve, but God calls us to endure? God didn't call us to great heights. God didn't call us to something spectacular. He called for us to endure. Because I think it's through that endurance, through that perseverance of opposition that we will face. It's through that God works and he brings the gospel to so many more people. You know, I think of so many pastors that have really fallen over the years and how they must have lost sight of this. It's not about achievement in the kingdom of God. It's about perseverance. It's just about going on. It's just about relationship. And that's one of the things we're going to cover as we move through this, is like, all this is about that right relationship, that spiritual opposition that you receive from churches in the day. We're called to endure through all that. We see here, there's also Matthew 10:22 says, you will be hated by everyone because of my name, but the one who endures unto the end will be saved. We also see this same verbiage in Matthew 24 and Luke 21. So many people will also link this to a tribulation, sparing the church from the tribulation, pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, side-trib, I don't know what. All right, here's all I'm gonna say is I'm not gonna get into it. I personally don't think that's what it's talking about. But there's an application here that endurance and perseverance will actually provide you with protection when you go through these things. There are things that God will bring you in and he will protect you from in that day. And we see that he's promising those things to the church at Philadelphia. It had to have been hard for them. A very small community of believers who are being opposed by Jews, a very small community of believers who are being opposed by Romans alike. So everyone surrounding them is against them. And we see here that God promises to protect them because they endured. In verse 11, it says, I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one takes your crown. And we see here in this instance, there's a word Stephanos that is referenced here. It represents honor and reward given to one who completed a contest, persevered faithfully, or achieved victory. Have you ever thought about the fact that it's not about an end state? That victory is not about an end state, it's about a continual relationship that you have. So in our lives, what constitutes victory in our relationship with Christ? I'm gonna open it up for answer. No, I'm not gonna do that. So when we think about this crown, when we think about victory, Stephanos, it represents honor and reward given to one who has completed a contest, persevered faithfully, or achieved victory. This is where I kind of took this and studied it out, and I feel like it's not a completion aspect. It is a constant state of relationship that you have. That is where we receive our victory. When we have victory in our lives, it's through that endurance. It's through that perseverance. It's through right living every day. It's through keeping knowledge of the fact that Jesus is who he is. He's holy. He's true. You know, he is that royal authority. He is King Jesus in our life. And the thought of don't let someone take that from you is that there shouldn't be anything in your lives that competes and takes away the victory that you have obtained by putting your trust and faith and confidence in the fact that Jesus is the Messiah. The fact that Jesus came down and he suffered what he suffered, and he did what he did. He died on the cross and was raised from the dead. That conquering, our victory in that should not be challenged. We should not be, we should absolutely protect that at all costs. It should be something that we are sold out for in our lives. And so as we look at, hold on to what you have so that no one takes your crown. Think about that victory that you have achieved thus far and protect that, because it is a continual victory that we see on a day-to-day basis. And have you ever thought of this? Is that I already said that it's not about achievement. Like, this life is not about a final achievement. We have right relationship with Jesus now. You realize that's going to continue after we're gone? That is a continual state. It is something that is lived for the rest of eternity. And so there is no end state in that. And that's what we need to protect. Look at verse 12. The one who conquers, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never go out again. I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and my new name. There's some things that are important here in how this is worded. When we look at the one who conquers, and we've talked about it a little bit already. So how do you conquer this? I don't know, this not necessarily this life, but how do we conquer? How are we said we achieve that victory? How do we conquer? So it's through trust, it's through obeying, and it's through remaining faithful no matter what the cost. And that's an important victory. To be able to conquer something means that we have to understand that there is something true, that we have to obey his word, and that there is going to come a cost at some point. And in order to conquer, we are going to need to be willing to pay that cost. When we think about the symbology of pillar in the temple of my God, so what are the aspects of being a pillar? Something stable, right? Something that holds up, something that supports. Well, think about the region that Philadelphia was. The region was full of earthquakes. It was unstable in all of its ways. So the words that Jesus used, the words that Jesus uses here would have been something that was very, very pertinent to them. They're looking for stability in their lives. They're looking for something that is concrete, something that is immovable. They're looking for something that remains the same. They experienced a great earthquake and everything their lives were uprooted. And so when Jesus comes in and says, for those, let me read it again. The one who conquers, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. He's using verbiage that there are some things in life, regardless of what your life circumstances are, regardless of what changes come in your life, whether the ground shakes, whether this moves, or whether this happens, there is something that isn't going to move. Those who conquer, I will make a pillar to my God, in the temple of my God, and he will never go out again. There is a permanence about relationship that we need to understand. And because of that, it should drive us towards all this perseverance and all this endurance. So it's very significant that it was a quake-prone area. So when we move on to writing new names, there are three different elements that are written here. I want to go through them. All right. So back in those times, we see that I will write on him a new name. So basically when things are, I will write on him a new name. that is taking and putting a seal over something. So when we think about this from a royal decree, the king would take his royal signet, his stamp, and would seal something, and it would make it so. And it would make it a permanence, and only the king could change that. And so when we think about a new name, it means that they are citizens in that heavenly kingdom forever. It is something that is not a temporary thing. It is a permanent solution. When he's writing the name, I'll write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God. And so when we think about the name of the city, what was really cool when I started studying it is the city of Philadelphia actually went through about 4 name changes in the time where it was destroyed to the time it was reconstituted fully. And they were naming the city after the ruler of the time because he helped reestablish the city. Well, when God talks to us about, I will write on the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, there is something that is not going to change. Like, even though the name of Philadelphia was changed and these things changed at the drop of a hat, there is something, the New Jerusalem is something that's never going to change. And when we think about what God has for us, what God has in store for us, as we endure and we see the victory and we have right relationship with him, there is a name that God is going to put on us. The name of the city of my God, New Jerusalem, is something that would have been so significant to them, is that these things come and go, these things change, but there is something that God is going to write on us that will never change. God says, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. When we look at it says, my new name, the new name reflects his full glory identity after his resurrection and exaltation. So there was a new name that Jesus is able to give out once he conquered death. And that new name is given to us as we conquer along with him. So, and then the last verse says, let anyone who has ears to hear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches. So the thing that I really want to point out here is this is a call for everybody. Let everyone who has ears listen. The Spirit speaks. The churches must heed this. And whether it's our church or whether it's the 75 and a half churches that you passed on the way here, all churches need to heed this. This is something that's not unique to Bethlehem Church. This is something that's not unique to us as individuals. It is a call for all. And so when we think about what all of this means to be a faithful church, what this means to be a faithful servant of Jesus, is that it is a call that we all must heed, every one of us. So when we look at the faithfulness of this church, and it says, and Jesus said, look. So individually in your lives, are we heeding what the Spirit is saying to us today? Would we consider ourselves faithful in the things that God is calling us to do? Are we in his word? Do we stand up for his name? Are we spreading the gospel? Are we doing everything that we can? You know, I'm a big believer in God has given us stewardship, in both our time, our talents, and our treasures. Are we doing everything that we can in all those different areas? So listen, this is the Spirit calling. And just remove me from this equation this morning. What is God speaking to you about? What is it in your life that keeps you from being that faithful servant? What is it in your life that keeps you from being called someone who conquers, someone who endures? And I'm going to tell you, like, life is going to throw curveball after curveball, but that's not what it's about. It's about responding to that curveball. It's about responding to the circumstances that are brought into our lives, and how we respond to those is how we persevere. is, do we go back to the fact that it's all about King Jesus and what he did for us on the cross? So moving on, we're into the final approach. We're landing the plane. Knowing, what do we know? Jesus is our ultimate authority. We talked about it, the Holy One, the True One. He holds the keys of David. He is the rightful king with absolute authority over the kingdom. He opens doors and no one can shut them. He shuts the doors and no one can open them. Today, there is standing before you that option. If you have never walked through that door that Jesus has opened by the fact that he died on the cross, that is a door that you must walk through in your own life. There is an opportunity for you to declare and understand that Jesus is the ultimate authority over everything that we do. He is holy, he is true, and he is the king over all. He alone determines access to salvation, to service, fellowship with God, and his holiness guarantees justice. His truth ensures that his promises can be trusted. So we see first that Jesus is our ultimate authority. And next we see Jesus honors faithful endurance. So Christ commanded the believers in Philadelphia, or he commended them, not commanded them, for their steadfast obedience despite having little strength. So he set before them an open door, and what happened was, because of their obedience, they are able to walk through that door. So today, I guess the question would be is like, do we see ourselves as being honored, are we honored for our faithful endurance through our walk, through our living, through our relationship with Jesus? Are we able to say that, yes, I've walked through that door, I've done what I can, I am faithfully enduring? Have I kept his word? Have I not denied his name? So those things are paramount to us achieving that spiritual victory in our lives. So not only do we see Jesus is the ultimate authority and Jesus honors faithful endurance, but we see Jesus calls us to hold fast. This is because the Lord is coming soon, believers are called to hold fast in their faith and truth. Remember, go back to the crown as a sign of victory. So you step into right relationship. I almost stepped into it, all right. I almost stepped right into the communion table. We step into these victories through our endurance. But are we able to absolutely hold on to that? What keeps us from persevering? What keeps us from maintaining our faithful service? How come we see in churches so many times that people come in and they get all worked up and, they're on fire, they're doing this, they're serving, and then all of a sudden a test comes and they step out. And listen, if that's where you're at today, this is not a judgment. Been there myself. But what I'm saying is that we lose sight of the fact that we are supposed to hold fast. Jesus has told us that we are to remain steadfast. We are to persevere. We are to conquer. Get back into what that first love is. Get back to the fact that it is King Jesus who called us to be who we are. We step into humility and say, it's not about me, it's about him. And from that, we see that God will bring in that protection. God will call us to hold fast, and we're able to stand a little bit better in that day. And by the way, if you've been in church any length of time, you know there's gonna be a time where you wanna serve and a time that you don't serve. Just be faithful. Just endure. It's gonna be a time. How many of y'all wake up on Monday and go, you know what, I don't wanna go to work? But you go. Why do you go? Because they pay me if I go. All right? All right, so now that we've established that, get into serving. Hold fast. And the last thing that we see, knowing what do we know? Jesus secures our eternal identity. We we know that there are new names that are written. So once we establish our identity in him, he secures that. He puts that stamp on us, and we're forever his. Amen. We can honestly say that that should be what keeps us driving, is to know that forever I'm his child. Forever he is king. I'm his loyal subject. I pledge allegiance to King Jesus. And from that, we can have assurance that it's forever. He is that royal authority, that king who seals us with that seal. Amen. All right. Serving, what do we do? Amen. We surrender and we trust. We surrender and we trust. Who is King Jesus to you today? You may say, all this is kind of new to me. Well, there just needs to be a moment in time in which you understand exactly who he is. And then that calls you to surrender. We have to give up. What does surrender mean? Surrender means to completely give something into somebody else's control. Have we done that? Have we said, you know what, King Jesus, I will surrender. I surrender all. There's another song that popped into my head, all right? Squirrel. When we think about surrender, we have to give him all aspects of our life. And we can't hold back that, when we think about our time, when we think about our talents, when we think about our treasures, when we think about these things, what is it that we're holding on to? And I love the fact that Matt says, that's why praise is done like this, because you let go. And you give it up to God, and it's freely. It's a free exchange. You give it up, God pours in. You give it up, God pours in. Now, if you're like me, my worship's like this. No, I'm just kidding. But we surrender, and then we trust. We trust that God is who he says he is, that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. Next, we serve with steadfast obedience. All right, so at the risk of beating this horse to death, get in and serve. Serve God with all your might. I'm not saying that you have to be at the church 24/7. We don't want that. There's balance in this, but we want you to serve in the way that he is calling you to serve, with steadfast obedience. Be faithful to it. And the next point is we guard what he has entrusted to us. This goes back to that mentality of stewardship. We guard it because we know that it is our legacy in our relationship with Jesus. Those things that he has entrusted us, those things that he's called for us to steward, we are to steward well. And so when we look at our walk and what we can do, we guard what he's entrusted to us. We don't spin we don't wildly, whatever that word is supposed to be, frivolous. I can't say it. I can't say Worcestershire sauce either. All right, there's just words that aren't meant to be said. That's all I'm saying. But we guard what he's entrusted to us. And that's also relationship. Guard your relationship with God. Don't let the things of this time, don't let the things of this world get in and really just pull you away from that relationship. Guard it. And the last thing is, with this, we're done. So whoever's in charge of this circus can get going. We serve with confident hope. We live with confidence, knowing that our future is settled in him. If he has sealed us permanently, we serve with confidence, knowing that he is true, knowing that he is holy, that he is King Jesus. We serve with a confidence that is unlike any other confidence we can ever have on this earth. Do you guys have any confidence in the government? No, it's online. I don't either. So I don't trust anybody when it comes to politics. But we understand that this is not like anything else in our lives. We serve with confident hope.